Yes, yes. Well, good afternoon. I am Sheila Hess, and I am the city representative for the city of Philadelphia. And I am so happy to be with all of you and I want to take this opportunity to salute the hard work and the dedication and all the creativity of our very talented writer and the award-winning author that we have right here with all of you today. And do you know who that is? That is our one and only Erin Entrada Kelly, who is sitting up here. She's holding the book that she wrote, and I know some of you are already reading it, right? Yes. Did someone finish it yet? No? Okay, well then I won't ask any questions or quiz you. Okay, well during Erin's accomplished career, she authored meaningful, very authentic, and emotionally honest books that are written to engage. She also written them to inspire you and to show respect to her youthful readers, and that's all of you from Mighty Writers here today, and we are so excited that you're with us. All Erin's books have received numerous acknowledgments, including the 2016 Golden Kite Honor Award for her book, The Blackbird Fly, and the 2017 APA-IA Honor Award, and that was for another book of hers, and that was for The Land of the Forgotten Girls, among many other awards and recognition. How cool, right? She got a lot of awards and she wrote a lot of books. So just this year, her book that you're reading, which is called Hello Universe, was published by Greensfield Books in just March of 2017, and that was awarded, and a big award. It's a very prestigious Newbery Medal, and that's why we're here today, by the Association for Literacy Services to Children, and that's a division of the American Library Association. So, Hello Universe, it tells its story from the perspective of four unlikely friends who come together on a quest that will require all of their combined courage, all the skills, and all the talent and trust to save the day and rescue a friend. So, it's a story of friendship, and it also explores the fears and uncertainties that trouble young people but are difficult to put into words. So Erin has written a book that is very touching that you'll know by reading it. It's very insightful, and it's also funny at the same time, and it's just like our lives, right? So we are very proud that Erin calls Philadelphia her home. She received her Master's of Fine Arts, so she kept going on to school, and hopefully you will all continue your education. She went to Rosemont College and is currently a professor. She teaches children's literature to the graduate fiction and publishing programs at Rosemont College. So we wanted to be certain that the writing honors that Erin received were properly acknowledged by us here at the City of Philadelphia, and she has such a great story. So we wanted to invite all of you, her special guests, to be part of this. So it is my pleasure to introduce Christine Caputo, who's the Administrative Librarian and the Chief of Youth Services and Programs at the Free Library of Philadelphia, right here in Center City, Philadelphia. So Christine?
Thank you. I'm so glad to see all of you here today, and I actually brought the library's copy of Erin's book today because it's such a wonderful book. Since you haven't read it yet, I'm going to tell you, you're going to meet some of the best friends you'll ever make in books right here in this novel. In fact, when I read it, the main character, Virgil, had a pet guinea pig, and when I was a kid, I had a pet guinea pig too, so I felt really close connection with Virgil in this book. Do any of you have a pet guinea pig? No? But yes, yay, all right, let's hear it for guinea pigs, yay. So it was a really funny book and poignant book, as was already said, and you're really gonna like it when you get to read it, so stop by your local library to check it out. I'd like to extend my congratulations to Erin on this wonderful, well-deserved award for her great book that really helps share the diverse stories of children in her book and helps diversify the books that we have available for children in the United States today. We know that sometimes when kids get to be your age, they stop reading books. They don't like to read books so much. I hope that's not the case for you. You're great writers and readers. But sometimes kids don't like to read that we're forced them to read. So this kind of book that's funny and interesting and with great characters can really help students continue to want to read when they read books about themselves and about people they want to know. So on behalf of the Free Library of Philadelphia and all readers in Philadelphia, congratulations and thank you very much for your great book. We look forward. I have reserved your next book as on reserve for me. It's copy's not available yet, but we look forward to reading your next books as they come up too. So congratulations.
Thanks so much, Chris. Okay. The role that well-written books play in exposing students to very different cultures also allows them to appreciate their own cultural heritage, and that's a very important awareness here in the United States because Philadelphia is the first World Heritage City. So Mayor Kenny knows how important it is that students develop a love of reading so that they can develop cultural awareness along with the essential social skills, and that's what you're doing now. So throughout Mayor Kenny's service, he was a councilman and now is mayor of the city of Philadelphia, right? Big deal. Look at that face. I love it. I love it. He worked to give all the students across our city a quality education from universal pre-K to developing community schools that improve the education outcomes while providing very critical resources and support to the surrounding community. So now let's give a huge, huge welcome to our special presentation. Let's welcome Mayor Jim Kenny. Okay.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Okay, thank you. We're here today to honor a remarkable young adult fiction writer who is one of Philadelphia's own. And it's my pleasure to again welcome Erin Entrada Kelly to City Hall. While her books and short stories have gained popularity, awards, and critical appeal, we're so happy to honor her for receiving the American Library Association's premier award, the Newbery Medal for Youth Fiction. Erin's book, Hello Universe, is a story about four middle schoolers whose lives cross paths on one fateful summer day. That's all I can say without spoiling it for you. You'll have to read it if you haven't read it already. And she's written other books, too, that are very popular, especially at the middle school level. So what is it about Erin's work that makes it different and special? Well, in her own words, quote, books are powerful tools. Bullying, acceptance, kindness, and empathy are common themes in my books. Many teachers, parents, and librarians use books as jumping-off points for difficult conversations. Growing up is hard, it's difficult. Kids need to know they aren't alone. Books are powerful tools to encourage those conversations. We here in the city couldn't agree more. In fact, we have here in our audience some young aspiring authors from the Mighty Writers program that Tim Whitaker leads to teach and mentor our youngest writers. And they're right there, so let's give them a hand. Reading books is a tremendous way for kids to enter new worlds, learn new possibilities, open up avenues to new experiences, and capture their imagination in ways that sometimes school doesn't always do in the classroom. Erin often writes about things kids go through, such as bullying, that really resonate with them in their lives. Her work is a wonderful validator for many kids that things are going to be okay and that they're not alone. So, Erin, we thank you for all you do for our kids for the kids who read your books, for coming up with stories and characters who captivate our students' imaginations, and for being a shining light in Philadelphia. Congratulations on your Newbery Medal. And now we want to ask you to come up to give you a little symbol of our appreciation. Step out here so you can keep marketing. Okay, thank you.
One more.
Oh, not so fast.
Thank you. I want to thank the mayor and the city of Philadelphia and the Mighty Writers and the Free Library, which has been very, very good to me. In my book, Hello Universe, one of the characters, Kaori Tanaka, says, sometimes we're delivered to the wrong birthplace. And I think that's true. I'm a transplant from Louisiana, but I'm proud to call the Philadelphia area my home. I've felt at home here since the first day I stepped on the soil. So thank you for coming. I'm so proud to be an adopted Philadelphian, I guess we'll say. And it's particularly meaningful to me that Hello Universe is being recognized because I actually wrote it as my thesis when I was getting my MFA at Rosemont College. So even though it's my third book, I wrote it while I was a student, getting my MFA in creative writing. So it makes it even more meaningful. So thank you, Rosemont, and thank you, Provost, for being here. I'm very honored. I'm going to read a little bit to you from the book. As mentioned, it's the story of 4 middle schoolers whose lives have crossed paths. And up to this point, I'm going to read to you from chapter 11. And up to this point, Virgil, who's one of the main characters, he's very, very shy. And he wants to talk to a girl in his class named Valencia, but he doesn't know how. So he goes to Kaori Tanaka for help because she is a psychic and a fortune teller. And she tells him to go into the woods and find 4 stones, each of a different size, and bring them back to her so she can do her magic. So in this chapter, it's called Down, Down, Down. Virgil is searching for the stones. And before he left the house, his Lola, which is grandmother, Tagalog for grandmother, told him to beware the color red. So his grandmother tells him a lot of folklore, Filipino folklore, as a way to teach him life lessons. And she's kind of dark and morose, but also funny. So before he leaves the house, she tells him to beware the color red. So that's all you need to know at this point. And also he has, well, there's something else you need to know. He has Gulliver, his guinea pig, in his backpack. He's put some fleece blankets in his backpack, and he put Gulliver in there so Gulliver can go with him on this quest to look for these stones. So this is Down, Down, Down. Of all the treats in the entire world, celery sticks, baby carrots, orange slices, Gulliver liked dandelions best. It took him less than 5 seconds to eat an entire stem, and then he'd root around for more. For Gulliver, dandelions were a rare delicacy. For humans, they were noxious weeds that needed to stop growing, but grow they did. Dandelions were everywhere in Virgil's neighborhood. They sprouted from the cracks in the sidewalk, leaned against rusty fence posts, sneaked into well-manicured lawns. Virgil plucked them habitually, like an explorer searching for gems. By the time he reached the woods, his left pocket was stuffed with them. He could have stuffed the other pocket too, but he was saving that for the stones. He wasn't allowed to explore the woods alone. The trees were thick in some places and sparse in others. Flowers grew intermittently, a patch of iris here, a colony of dandelions there. Lola was convinced the woods teemed with snakes, but Virgil was certain he could find 5 stones here, and not just any stones, but the best his town had to offer. He found 2 right away, just a few feet into the woods. Deeper in, the sounds of the neighborhood faded away, and he found another just like that. He was so focused on looking down, surveying the ground with his eyes, that he barely noticed the ominous rustling sound behind him. But when he heard the shuffle of feet, he jerked around, heart pounding, and stood very, very still. If there was one thing he knew, it was that you had to stay still when faced with forest beasts. Otherwise, you could become their supper. He didn't see anything, but he was certain he had heard something, and it wasn't the blowing of the wind or the falling of a twig. Someone or something was moving nearby. "Hello," Virgil said, quietly, like a croak. He thought he heard something, a growl, a snort. He suddenly the trees, pawing its front hoof in the dirt, bowing its head, steadying its horn, ready to charge. He imagined himself being flung into the air and landing on the thick gray skin of the giant creature before being trampled. One of Lola's old ghost stories popped into his head, too. She said there was once a man who told all his secrets to the trees, and after he died, the trees whispered them to anyone who passed by. Maybe it wasn't a rhinoceros, but a bunch of old trees that were ready to tell secrets. Virgil looked at his phone. It was 10:15. Maybe he'd just snatch up the next stones he saw and rush to Kaori's house. She might not mind if he got there early. But then the shuffling sound receded and disappeared, and the woods were quiet again. Virgil exhaled. His heart slowed. He looked at his feet, saw a fourth stone, and put it in his pocket. He wondered if he had picked the best ones. He wondered so deeply that he didn't hear the other shuffling sound, this time approaching from behind. Hey! Virgil turned around, startled. Chet Bullen's meaty face was a light shade of red, like it was ready to burst. "What are you doing out here all by yourself?" Chet said. "You lost your mommy?" It occurred to Virgil that the bull was also out here by himself, but he wasn't about to point that out. Instead, Virgil said nothing. He stood there, one pocket full of stones and the other full of dandelions, feeling very dumb, like someone had lifted him out of one story and placed him in another, in these unfamiliar woods, in this unfamiliar situation, alone with the bull, who was carrying a pillowcase. Virgil wondered what the pillowcase was for, and in the space of about 3 seconds, he thought of a handful of terrifying scenarios. The bull would smother him with it. He was using it to carry the bodies of dead animals. He was going to capture dead animals, smother them, and then carry their bodies. Chet's actually looking for a snake. That's why he has a pillowcase. And Chet wasn't just carrying a pillowcase. He was also wearing a Chicago Bulls t-shirt. Thank you. Beware the color red, Lola had said. Suddenly, the rhinoceros didn't seem so bad. "What's the matter?" the bull said. "Oh, yeah, I forgot. You don't know how to talk. I see you going into that special needs class all the time. What goes on in there anyway? A bunch of kids wetting their pants, I bet." In addition to being afraid of the dark, carrying a guinea pig in his backpack, and stuffing his pockets full of dandelions and rocks, Virgil had another secret. He weighed only 76 pounds, and even though he pretended to be 5 feet tall, he was actually 4'11". Virgil wasn't sure how much the bull weighed or how tall he was, but it was certainly more than him. "You really are stupid, huh?" the bull said. His eyes shifted to Virgil's backpack. Chet took a step forward, and Virgil took a step back, which the bull thought was hilarious because he immediately broke into peals of laughter before ripping Virgil's backpack off his shoulders with such force that Virgil actually spun, and hit the ground with a numbing whack that shot from the palms of his hands to his shoulders. The bull took off like a bullet. Virgil pushed himself up and ran after him, saying, "No, no," in the loudest voice he could manage without choking. "Gulliver," he cried, or maybe he only said it in his head, he wasn't sure. The bull darted between the trees, not laughing anymore, just running with Virgil's backpack in his hands. A million horrifying images blazed through Virgil's mind. The bull tearing Gulliver in two, feeding him to a pit of lions, picking him up and tossing him into the trees, which is why he didn't feel any better when the bull finally stopped running and turned to face him, his cheeks flushed and his neck and hairline glistening. Virgil waited for him to open the backpack, discover Gulliver, and destroy him. Instead, the bull took a giant step back, grinned evilly, and turned toward a stumpy circle of stones that Virgil had never noticed before. It was an old well. With 2 hefty shoves, the bull pushed the cover of the well aside and dangled the backpack over the now open hole. "Say bye-bye to your stuff," he said. The bull let go, and the bag fell into the dark, gaping well, so far down that Virgil didn't even hear it land. "I guess you'll have to get new books," the bull said, his smile widening. "Not that you need them anyway, since you probably don't know how to read." The bull wiped his hands on the front of his jeans as if he had just finished a dirty, dirty deed, which he had. And then he turned and walked away, disappearing into the woods and leaving Virgil alone. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Erin. So Hello Universe that you just heard tells an inspiring story that all ages can really appreciate, and it was such a privilege to actually hear it in your voice as you read it to us. The author, wasn't that pretty cool to hear the author who wrote it read a story to us? It was so nice to have story time for her. It was great. So at this time, I just want to introduce a man who has developed a program to give young Philadelphians, and that's you, from ages 7 to 17, a voice of your own through the practice and art of creative writing. So my team, the Office of City Representative, we've had the privilege and honor to work with Tim and his team to bring student writers to the forefront, and we are so delighted to have you with us and the young writers here with us today. So please welcome the Executive Director of Mighty Writers himself, Tim Whitaker.
I love questions, by the way. Jasmine from 5th grade. Hello. How long did it take me to write this book? It takes me about a year to write because I spend half the year doing research. So I spent about 6 months doing research. And I had to do a lot of research for this book because Valencia is deaf, and I didn't know anything about that experience. So I did research for about 6 months, and I did outlining. I do a lot of outlining, and then 6 months to start writing it. So I do all this planning before I ever start writing the first word. So all together, it takes about a year, and then it takes another year because then I have to send it to my editor, and then she sends it back to me with all kinds of corrections and changes, and that whole process takes another year. So altogether, it's about 2 years. Yeah.
I'm Nudia, and I'm in 4th grade. Who inspired you to write the book?
Oh, that's a great question. So I have to tell you that I get all my ideas usually when I'm driving or doing something else that I find utterly boring because my imagination starts running. So I was driving one day, and all my books start with a character. And so in this case, it was Virgil, and I saw a boy who was very shy, who was in a very dark place, and he was afraid. So then I started wondering why he would be down there. If you're afraid of the dark, of course you're probably not going to go to a dark place. So he needed a compelling reason to go down in the bottom of this well. And that's how Gulliver came to be. And then I imagined him calling out for help. And there's a girl, but she can't hear him. And so I wondered why, she wouldn't help him. And then I realized it was because she was deaf. So all the characters come to me almost fully formed. And I knew I wanted to write about a shy, sensitive boy who was very quiet and always picked last for basketball, as I was. So that's how the story came to be. It was inspired by the characters. Great question. The microphone can be intimidating.
Hi, I'm Jasmine. I'm in 8th grade, and I was wondering, what got you inspired to actually become a writer?
That's a great question. And the answer is, whenever I was a little kid, I spent a lot of time in my head. You know, I was a quiet kid, and I was very self-conscious all the time. And to be honest, I was a bit of a lonely kid. And I was an outcast, you know, where I grew up because obviously Lake Charles, Louisiana, where I grew up, is not as diverse as Philadelphia, right? I was the only Asian, I was the only Filipino. I looked very different from everyone else, and I was bullied a lot. So books were an escape for me. And one day I realized that, you know, books were words on paper, and if I had words, and I had paper, and I had a pen, and I realized that there's such power in creating something that's just for you, because you can make the world any way you want it to be. And I still feel that way. So I just started writing my own stories. And whenever I was writing or reading, it felt like I could be anywhere I wanted. I didn't have to be in my room in Lake Charles, Louisiana. I could be in any world that I created. So that's how I started writing when I was very young, when I was in like 3rd or 4th grade. And I haven't stopped writing since.
My name is Allison, and I'm in 5th grade. What's some things that you like about Virgil?
Oh, some things I like about Virgil. I love that question. I've never been asked that question before. Now, I have to tell you that usually when young people, or even adults for that matter, tell me who their favorite character is, it's usually Kaori, because she's kind of funny and quirky, and she's a psychic, you know, what's not to love. But I have a soft spot for Virgil. What I love about Virgil is that he is very kind, he's sensitive, he is very observant, and I like to write about characters who are underestimated by themselves or by others. Usually I write about outcasts or misfits or underdogs, and Virgil is all of those things. He doesn't really stand out, but he finds his own strength. So kind of the reason I wanted to write Hello Universe is to talk about how there's many different ways to be a strong person. You don't have to be the loudest or the biggest or the strongest. There's many different ways to be strong. Sometimes you can be quiet and mighty, and that's true for Virgil, I think. Great question.
Why was Valencia deaf and not Virgil?
Good question. Why was Valencia deaf and not Virgil? So whenever I had the image of Virgil in the well, I saw him calling out for help, and I saw a girl, above ground, and she wasn't helping him. And I was thinking, why aren't you helping him? You seem like a perfectly nice person. But then I realized she didn't hear him. And so that's kind of how her character developed. And there was a lot of times when to be honest, I was scared, and I kind of regretted that the character was deaf, because I was worried about misrepresenting that community, because it's outside of my own experience. So I did so much research, and I wound up basing Valencia off of this woman named Gina Oliva, who was a deaf advocate and a professor at Gallaudet, the Deaf University in Washington, D.C. And I worked a lot with the American Society for Deaf Children. And so that's how Valencia just grew from there. Yep.
My name is Valeria. I'm in 4th grade. And what do you like about the book?
Ooh, I like that it won the Newbery Medal. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, I'm not kidding, but I do like that. What I like about the book is it was a lot of fun to write. This was the first book where I wrote many different points of view, so that was a lot of fun. And I had a lot of fun writing Valencia because she was in first person and all the other chapters are in third person, so I thought that was fun. But what I like most about the book is that idea that, you know, you can be a very strong person, right? It doesn't matter. You don't have to be, like I said, the biggest or the loudest or the mightiest on the surface. And so another thing about Valencia being deaf is that I liked the idea that she's very strong and independent, and she's fairly outgoing, but she doesn't have many friends because people don't want to talk to her because she's deaf, so they pretend like she's invisible, basically. And with Virgil, it's the opposite. So he's very shy and introverted, and he has trouble talking to others. So it's just this idea of making the different ways our voices can be heard through these different characters. So I think that's what I like most about the book. And then second is that it won the Newbery Medal.
Hi, my name is Madeline. I'm their instructor. Oh, we have a question. I'm going to turn it to you first.
My name is Jocelyn and I'm in 4th grade. Why did you name it Hello Universe?
Oh, I'm glad you asked that question because I did not name it Hello Universe at first. So this is what happens. I come up with a title for my books that I think is fantastic, and then I send it to my editor, and she sends me an email back that says, I don't know about the title, and then she says, let's keep thinking. And she says, let's keep thinking as if she's going to help me, but it really just means you need to think of a new title because she does not help me. So then I say, well, what do you think? And then she says, I don't know, you're the writer, like, thanks. So originally the title was Virgil and Valencia. And my editor did not like that title, even though her name's Virginia. You would think she would like it because of all the, V alliteration. You know what alliteration is, right? But no, she did not like it. And she said that it didn't really say anything about the book, and it didn't recognize the other characters who are very strong in the book, namely Kaori and Chet. So I came up with a ton of titles. And the thing about coming up with titles is you don't know if it sounds good or ridiculous. There's really no way to know. So I would send her like 12 or 15, and then she would write back and say, I don't know, which means no, right? And then I came up with one. I sent her an email, and it said, what do you think about Hello Universe, hello? And I was thinking of like, Hello Universe would be one title, or maybe just hello. And so she sent me an email back that said, this is after months and months, okay? She sent me an email back that said, did you mean Hello Universe Hello as a title, or Hello Universe or Hello? And I said, I meant whichever one you like, because I'm tired of coming up with titles. And so she liked Hello Universe, and that's how it came to be. Yes.
Who else helped you write the book?
Who else helped me? Let's see. Well, I would say Gina helped me a tremendous lot, and I also lean a lot on my agent who is here, Sarah. She's right there. And I have a very, very small group of trusted readers, and by that I mean, you don't want to give your manuscript to someone who's just going to say, oh, it's great, maybe you should move some commas around. You want someone who's going to really get in the meat of it and say, this part doesn't make sense, or maybe you should develop this scene more. You want someone who's really going to give you good feedback. I also got tremendous feedback from Rosemont since I wrote it as my thesis, which means it was my final project to get my master's degree. So I worked with the thesis advisor at Rosemont, who also helped me a lot. Trying to figure out the different points of view and how to manage all the different points of view. So it's a small group of people that I trust tremendously who I know will be honest with me. Because you don't want to give someone, like I'm sure when you write, you don't want to give someone your work and they'll just say, oh, it's great, because then how are you supposed to get better? Because nothing can ever be perfect the first time, So yeah, I have a small group of people I trust very much. Great question.
My name's Athena. I'm in 5th grade. Why did you decide the characters to be uncommon names?
Oh, good. Why did I decide for them to be uncommon names? Well, even though I have a lot of trouble with book titles, as you can see, character names come to me very organically. So usually they'll tell me their names. I know that sounds weird, but they'll come to me fully formed with their names already. I wanted Kaori and her little sister Gen, Gen, to have Japanese names because they're Japanese American, 3rd generation. And then Virgil is actually named after my mother. Her name is Virgilia, and his name is Virgilio, and so Virgil is short for Virgilio, because Lola was based a lot off of my mother, so I wanted to honor her. And then Valencia, her name actually, sometimes I do writing exercises. You probably do writing exercises too, Mighty Writers, and one time I went to this workshop and this woman said, write about a character who is talking about her name, like how he or she feels about their name. And I wound up writing Valencia's chapter from that writing exercise. So that's her name came to me. I knew I wanted it to be 2 V's too, just because, no reason. But so that's how the names came to me. Yep.
How do you feel about the book?
How do I feel about it? I feel pretty good. I think that, I think there's writers feel differently when their books come out in print. Sometimes they are panicked because they want to change something, or they're panicked because it's never completely finished to them, but that's not really my way. Pretty much when I'm done with a manuscript and it's out there, I see it as out there for better or worse. So no matter what, it's my finished book, and of course I'm proud of it because it's a book, just something to be proud of. But so I feel pretty good about it. Yeah, I do. I'm pretty comfortable with all my books. I mean, they're out there now. No turning back.
At a certain point when you were writing the book, did you ever get frustrated?
Yes, I get frustrated every time I'm writing. I go through this cycle of hating everything that I'm writing and thinking that it's boring and thinking that it's bad. I go through this whole cycle, and then I think, oh, it's not so bad. And then I start writing again, and then I start thinking it's bad again. It's this whole cycle. In fact, I have a book coming out next year. It's a fantasy. It's my first fantasy. And it's inspired by Filipino folklore. And I just sent my editor an email the other day that said, you haven't said anything about the book, and now I'm spiraling out of control, and I'm convinced that you hate it, and it's a big, hot mess. And she wrote back to me that said, it's not a mess, but I'm sending you questions. Well, that's like, okay, great. So there's going to be probably 85 questions, right, that she's going to send me. So yes, I always get frustrated. I think the thing that frustrated me most was, I don't know if I'd call it a frustration, but I was very worried about how I portrayed Valencia. So that dominated a lot of my thoughts. I wouldn't say it's frustration necessarily, but just taking up a lot of space in my brain. Yeah.
So we were wondering, as a collective group, you had sprinkled some words of Tagalog and the chapters that include Lola. Mm-hmm. And a lot of us speak another language at home. Mm-hmm. And we were wondering how you decided to include bilingual components in your work, and what you would tell young writers who also want to do that in their own work.
I love that question. It's actually Cebuano, because my mother speaks Cebuano, not Tagalog, which, the Philippines has so many dialects, it's not even. But so I grew up listening, I don't speak Cebuano, but I grew up listening to my mother speak it. And just as anyone who grew up in a bilingual home, I'm sure you can, there's words sprinkled in here or there, they're all mixed up together. The reason I decided to include those words is because that's how my mother spoke to me, even though I didn't speak the language, but she called me anak, which is like a Filipino word of term of endearment for young people. And all these different phrases that my mother would say to me. That's why I included it. Also, because Virgil's parents and his Lola are all from the native to the Philippines, it made sense to me that they would use their native words. And as far as incorporating into writing, of course, I greatly encourage it because I think any exposure that readers or young people can have to other cultures and languages is critical, and language is such a foundation for any culture. I guess what I would say is the thing that I did try to do is use context clues, so if someone wasn't familiar with what the word meant, that they would be able to figure it out, just based on what's happening in the scene. But I think it's important to incorporate that element, because language is so important to any culture. Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking time to answer our questions.
Thank you.
We're really enjoying the book so far.
Thank you. Thank you, Mighty Writers.
Well, thank you, Tim, and thank you, Erin. And thanks to all of you mighty writers, because you have asked some really intriguing questions and questions that I didn't even think of, but it was great to get your question and to hear Erin's answer on that. So thank you for your insight. Came very well prepared. It was excellent. Great job, students. And I know that Erin enjoyed sharing that experience as well in this award-winning author with you. So how many of you think that you can write a book in less than the amount of time that Erin did? No? Some of you may be able to write it in a little bit shorter time, right? Do you already have your book title in your mind that you think that whoever you have to edit will say that's the title the first time? No? Okay. Well, next up, I want to bring up another special individual who's impacted Erin's life. I'd like to introduce the Rosemont College Provost, Dr. Lisa Dolan, to share a few words as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of Rosemont College, I'd like to say how proud we are of Erin in so many ways. First of all, we're proud to call her an alumna of the college. That means she's a former student, and of course now a professor. And I wanted to share with you a component of our mission statement. Students, a mission statement is the statement that embodies the college, tells you who we are and what we're all about. And we like to say we're a community of lifelong learners. And I think we have a perfect example of a lifelong learner here, because I don't know if you know this, but Erin was already an accomplished writer before coming to Rosemont. And I heard her talk about why she decided to come back to college to get another degree. She said she wanted to become an even better writer. And how do you become a better writer? You become a better learner. So she came back and continues her craft and is even better every day she continues. And think about that as you continue to be students, to learn. Think about college. It'll be here before you know it. But the idea is you never stop learning. Learning doesn't end with the closing of a book. So again, we're very proud. We thank you all. Thank the mayor's office for inviting us. And someday you'll be standing here, hopefully, getting the same award. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing those words as well, Dr. Dolan. Okay, now are you guys ready for what's up next? Yes? Well, Erin is going to take a seat, and you have here in front of her, now Mighty Writer students, we're happy to tell you that you're all going to receive your own autographed copy of the book, but Erin is going to personalize and autograph them right now for all of you. Right? Look at those faces. Yay! Awesome. So what we're going to do is we ask that you enjoy reading all these personalized copies, but Erin will take a seat if one by one if you want to come up, and you can tell her your name, and she'll write your name on the copy, okay? You guys excited? Yeah, so you get your own autographed copy. So cool. Nobody else will have an autographed copy of all your friends who are reading the same book. Jocelyn, right? Yes. 4th grade, right?